Apple wasn't the first company who built a personal computer. Facebook wasn't the first company who built a social network. Google wasn't the first company that built the search engine. Those companies who showed up later, but who understood the game, who understood how to compete, they eventually won the market. When we are talking about modern AI technologies, we are talking about machine learning. The more users you have, the more data you have. The more data you have, the better models you have, and the better models you have, the better product you have. So it's not just limited to large companies such as Google. Anyone can build the AI business and AI competitive advantage if they understand the game.
Hi everyone, it's a new episode of JSP Coffee Podcast, and today with us we have a very special and a very interesting guest because we know that you love AI, so do we. And today I'd like to introduce you to Sergii Shelpuk, who is an AI technology evangelist and AI architecture professional with over 10 years of experience on this market, helping businesses to take their new competitor advantages. So we'll be discussing the best practices for businesses to implement AI into their processes and how to leverage AI and to gain this competitive advantage in the market. And we will discuss very interesting things. So please stay with us on this episode of GSP Coffee Podcast. Hi, Sergey. How are you today?
Hello, Lina. Thanks for having me. Doing great. How about you?
Me too. I'm very excited because our topic today is just great. AI is a hot top technology, and your great experience in this direction should be really valuable and interesting for our audience. So let's start from your experience. You have been in this industry for over 10 years. Can you please briefly describe your way in this vertical and how you got into AI and how you have developed in it?
Sure. It started in 2011. I've been working at a company called Netcracker. We've been doing the enterprise software for telecommunication companies. And exactly in September 2011, Stanford University released publicly three of their classes. It's been machine learning class, then artificial intelligence class, and database class. The domain names were like AI-class.com, db-class.com, and ml-class.com. No massive open educational platforms existed back then. These were the first attempts to give access for the broader audience to something they studied at Stanford, and I got engaged tremendously. I fell in love with these technologies. I immediately seen how useful they are, how applicable they are. The only problem was that back then there was absolutely no open positions or projects whatsoever. So after an initial attempt for applying machine learning at Netcracker for the telecommunication business, I moved to SoftServe. And then at SoftServe, we started the very first data science department, data science group in Ukraine. Back then, Sergei Haritonov was the CTO, and he authorized the initiation of that department. And I became the first director of data science at SoftServe. Again, that was the very first business line, service line, and department in Ukraine, and pretty much one of the very first in Europe. So we learned by making mistakes, by trials and errors, but the department still exists to this day. Then I moved to two other companies, VI Tech and Eleks. I've built data science departments from scratch for them as well, and they still exist today. At some point in the year 2018, Eleks had 35 plus data scientists in my department. That was the largest AI/machine learning department in among all Ukrainian service companies, software development companies. Then I've been working on my own startup, it's Deep Trade. We've been building the software for analyzing genetic data, biological data using AI tools. I served briefly as vice president of data science with the startup called Shelf.io. We raised 52 million Stage B funding in 2021. And then I started my second business, which is consultancy, where I'm engaged right now. So right now I'm having two hats, right? One hat is with Deep Trade, we keep building the product, and the second hat is as a managing partner at Shelpuk AI Technology Consulting.
That sounds just impressive. How it feels to be a pioneer in something.
Very cool, very nice. Back then we had like five, six, seven people working hands-on in machine learning across the entire country. I can name their by name, right? We keep in touch with with each other to this day. We keep our friendship going, and the community was not about say money or other benefits back then. We were just engaged with this new technology, with all the opportunities it brings. There was no huge salaries, no even no positions on LinkedIn. Igor Kostuk, one of those early days data scientists, actually the first hire I made for SoftServe, told me back then in 2014, exactly 10 years ago, that the day that he switched his position on LinkedIn from software engineer to data scientist, the recruiters stopped writing him at all. And he told that that was quite scary, and that triggered thoughts about whether that was the right move, right? You were accustomed to having lots of invitations, lots of interest from recruiters when you are a software engineer. But suddenly they stop talking to you, they stop approaching you, and you think like, oh, well, am I really doing the right thing? Obviously, things changed a lot, but that's a bit of a flavor of how it was 10 years ago.
Okay, so 10 years ago, the world was a bit different, and AI abbreviation was more like related to Adobe illustration than to artificial intelligence. And now every second startup somehow connected to AI. And you have this huge experience in this business vertical, data science, ML, and AI. In your opinion, what percentage of companies, how many companies actually have implemented AI for now in their business processes, and which part of those companies are not like into AI and they wait until better times?
Well, first of all, as a data scientist and a data person, I must say we have data on that. European Commission has statistics on that. I don't have the most up-to-date one, but the most recent one that I remember tells that in Europe it's less than 10% of the enterprise companies who are actually working in production in day-to-day business with AI. In the US, it was slightly higher. Definitely depends on the industry. That's across all industries. If we are talking about the information technology, that might be higher. But generally speaking, we can broadly divide the companies and businesses who deal with AI into two groups. One of the group more more R&D kind of companies, let's say this way. They don't have a stable or understandable business model. They don't have a clear path to profitability. They don't care about the competitive positioning. What they care about is to build something which would trigger the acquisition. So the whole point of this first cohort is to get acquired. Basically, you don't care about the revenues, the product, or you care much less about the revenue, the product, the competition. You just want to build something fast and get yourself acquired. That's the first cohort of the companies dealing with AI, and obviously, when we see funding goes up, the cohort grows. When we see funding dries out, the cohort shrinks. But overall, they are still there. The second cohort is stable enterprise businesses who actually care about the bottom line, about the numbers, and about the competitive positioning. These companies are not looking for the hype, or they care less about the hype. They are very specific about what the technology can do for them. And these companies are normally for decades on the market. They want to stay on the market for the next decades, ideally grabbing larger market share. They're not looking to be acquired. They're not looking for an exit. They are looking for the revenues. And that's a completely different approach. Those two groups are looking for completely different things. And we take a different approach and different stance when we are talking to each of those cohorts.
Okay, so we have this first group of, let's say, AI hitchhikers who implement AI just to say we are AI-based company. Please buy us or merge us or acquire us. And we have the second part of the audience, more serious businesses. And in your opinion, how many of them explore the full potential of this technology?
When we are talking about the utility of AI, there's another dimension which we like to consider and the frame that we like to adopt. In that frame, in that dimension, there are two ways of getting utility from AI technologies. One way is pretty similar to every other technology. This is about speeding up time to market, cutting costs, improving some processes. Basically, that's about the bottom line. In that case, AI is no different from every other technology, say a cloud or a new database, or making this to the extreme, even a new laptop. When you are considering whether to deploy a new database that just emerged on the market, you are not likely to build this database yourself, right? You rather look for someone who is selling this database, who has implemented the new approach, the new algorithm, the new tool, and you buy this tool from them. In that way, if you are looking for bottom line enhancement, the AI is no different from the new database. These companies who are looking at AI as an enhancer are likely to buy rather than build. And that's the right approach to the technology management. Generally speaking, the technology management starts with the question buy versus build. Everything else stems from this decision. If you if you decide to buy a technology, then the question is who is the vendor, how stable is the company, what's the price, what's the product roadmap, stuff like that. If you want to build the software, then the question becomes how do we build it, what are the features, how do we support it, and other relevant questions. So these are different routes, different positions, and the decision starts with buy versus build. So the most common case and the most common understanding for AI these days is still about enhancers. Normally, it's about how do we speed up the process, how do we automate this or that thing, how do we improve the bottom line, and that's perfectly legit. But that's about buying a new tool or buying a new AI product that is on the market. That's the most common application that we are seeing right now. But the most interesting application of AI is the second bucket in this frame, where you are using AI to build the competitive advantage. In simple words, the competitive advantage is about making your product hard to copy for your existing competitors and hard to copy for copycat latecomers.
Okay, talking about competitive advantages, AI can be a really costly technology, and businesses consider if they want to have deal with AI. So, if AI a necessary tool, or if it can be a competitive advantage, how we can ensure that implementing this technology we have the most of it?
I'll start with the competition as the concept. The competition is the primary driver for the long-term business success. It's not about whether you are first on the market. It's not about whether you have the most funding. It's primarily about the competition. Whether you are going to be there in 10 years or whether you are not going to be there anymore in 10 years is the matter of whether you could withstand the competition or whether the competition crushes you. Couple of misconceptions with respect to competition on the technology market. I'll name just two of them. One misconception is that you should be first, right? There's a notion that you should be first on the market and that somehow guarantees you the success. Well, it's just not true. And if we look at the whole history of technology business, we'll see that the companies who are tremendously successful these days, who stand firmly in the top 10 of the market valuation list, they they rarely been first on their markets. Apple wasn't the first company who built a personal computer. Facebook wasn't the first company who built a social network. Google wasn't the first company that built the search engine. Well, Nvidia wasn't the first company who built the 3D accelerating card. There's been a company called Silicon Graphics. They were outstanding, but they went out of business. Just to name a few, right? We can recall lots of other very big names such as Altair, Atari, Polaroid, Nortel, BlackBerry, Compaq, MySpace, 3DFX, Motorola, General Motors, Netscape, Kodak, they all suffered and sometimes disappeared completely because of the competition. They didn't understand the competition, they didn't withstand the competition. On the other hand, those companies who showed up later, but who understood the game, who understood how to compete, they eventually won the market. So that's the first misconception about being first is the competitive advantage. It is often not. There are exceptions such as iPhone story, but these exceptions are rare. It's not the common story. It's rather an exception. The second misconception is that every technology product can be copied. This is especially prevalent across the engineers, although we face the truth about this misconception every day, right? We use products such as Google Search, Gmail, YouTube, and others. If they could be copied at all, we wouldn't see the situation when Google Search dominates a lucrative $100+ billion market, right? We would see thousands of companies in fierce competition for this market if there was a chance to copy this product. Same goes for YouTube, right? Same goes for Facebook, you name it. If there was a way to really copy Facebook, then we would see thousands of small social networks rather than one social network completely dominating the market. So there are ways to prevent the product from being copied. These ways are well known. It's not a very big secret. And deploying AI in a proper way, in a special way, is one of those methods.
You don't need to be first in your vertical to be a leader in your vertical, and you need to be something that cannot be copied to stay competitive. It's really good idea. I believe it really mind blowing for many of new startups that try to become first, first in something at least, first in better product service, first in product design or something. Just even if you produce like pink calculators instead of common black and white, they decided we have something very new, so we are first in this industry and we secure our future success. So it's really a good thought. Okay, Val. So you know a lot about those businesses implementing AI as a tool to help them gain this competitive advantage. And of course, you are an insightful person. What I mean, you have a lot of insights from the inner space of those companies. So you are well known to their processes, to their conceptions and approaches. And can you share from this point of view the general logic of how you should implement AI to business to have this better position on the competitive market and in this battle?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. When you look at the top 10 most valued companies in the world, whoever listens to us right now could open the list at your very moment, and I can guess maybe 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10 names on that list. This list is incredibly stable. The names are there year over year. It's not like the companies are getting reshuffled. If you look at the top 10 most valuable companies in the world, they're going to be Apple, they're going to be Alphabet, they're going to be Meta, they're going to be I'm talking about the technology companies. They're going to be like Berkshire Hathaway, but they are not a tech company, so I'm putting them aside, right? But speaking about the tech companies, there's likely to be Nvidia on that list as well. What else? There's likely to be Amazon on that list. And if you open this list for year 2024, 2023, 2022, they're the same names, right? And since they are public companies, they publish their revenues and other reports openly. So we can actually see those reports and analyze what are the products that generate the majority of their revenues. Surprisingly, we will see that for all of these tech companies, a grand share of their revenue, 70+%, is generated by just 2 to 3 products. For Google, that's going to be Google Search, then Google Cloud, and YouTube. I'm taking that from the top of my head, right? For Facebook, that's going to be Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. For Amazon, that's going to be Marketplace and AWS Cloud. For Apple, that's going to be iPhone and iMac. The pattern holds, right? So that's the case. That's the situation. We have trillion-dollar companies sitting firmly on the top of that list. If 2 or 3 products make you a trillion-dollar company, there's no problem of finding an investment, right, for replicating those companies. If I could replicate 2 or 3 products of any of those companies, which would catapult me to the trillion-dollar valuation, right, I could find literally any investment, literally any amount of money to build that. Even more interestingly, to see how those companies are trying to compete with each other. For example, Microsoft at some point wanted to build Windows Mobile for the mobile phones. That failed, right? Obviously, Microsoft has any number of money, right, in the world to fund this endeavor, but they just couldn't compete with Apple and with iOS and with Android. Now, Google wanted to build a Facebook competitor, Google Plus, some years ago. It failed. Again, Google could afford any spending on the new product, but they decided to close. They didn't make it, right? They couldn't compete head to head with Facebook. There are lots of other stories. And when you look in this situation, you can clearly see that these products are somehow impossible to copy. All of those mentioned. And when we look at what product models, what business models these products apply, we could see that there are really 4 product models, business models that are common for those most valuable companies. These business models are platform, social network, then the third is marketplace, and the fourth is AI product. All of those business models, all of those product models are instances of the same phenomena known as the network effect. And the point of network effect is that the more users you have, the more valuable your product becomes for every user. The network effect instantiates differently in each of those business models. But since you are asking about the AI, I'm going to make an example of how it works for AI. When we are talking about modern AI technologies, we are talking about machine learning. Modern AI is all about machine learning, and machine learning models are the marriage of the data and the algorithm. You have the algorithm, the model, the architecture, and you train it with the data. After you do that, you have the final model, which is actually useful. In this marriage, the data is the king, which means whoever has the best data ends up with the best model. You can have a superior algorithm, but if you have an inferior data, you would end up with the worst model, comparing to those who has superior data set, which means large data set, better data set, or a cleaner data set, a data set of better quality, even if they use an inferior model, inferior architecture, for example, inferior machine learning model. So this is the first point, which is very important for us. Whoever owns the data ends up with the best model. Now, if you build your model, if you build your business such that your product generates data by being used, and the more the product is used, the more data it generates. Now, if you use this data to train your own machine learning models such that these models then improve your product, that closes the loop with a positive feedback loop and creates a cycle that goes like that. The more users you have, the more data you have. The more data you have, the better models you have. And the better models you have, the better product you have. The better product you have, the more users you have, right? So it increases your user base.
Boom! Like a big
Yes,
secret of the universe.
kind of. And when we look at the products such as Google Search or YouTube, we see this concept in action. Some years ago, Google published a paper, and we know an attitude or habit of Google. They publish their technologies at the moment they don't use it anymore. They published MapReduce when they stopped using MapReduce, right? So we can be pretty sure they're not using this specific approach anymore, but we know they did use it. They used to use it. And the point was like the follows. The web search problem is essentially a sorting problem. You need to sort all the web pages on the internet with respect to the relevance, to the search query. And Google was using, and still using, to my best knowledge, their proprietary PageRank algorithm developed by Larry Page in 1998, and since then continuously improved. But at some point, they started to re-rank top 20 or 30 pages with the machine learning algorithm. So how it works, the conventional search just runs something like PageRank, and you have your list. But with the secondary re-ranking, Google trains a machine learning model, a very simple one, that takes as an input your digital profile, your search query, and the page. and the output is the likelihood in percentage from 0 to 100 for you as an individual person to click on this individual page having this individual search query. This digital profile is key. Google collects information from your historical search queries, from Gmail, from Android if you're using Android, from YouTube if you look YouTube, from other snippets on the websites that might collect the information about you. They got lots of data about you, and they use it to build your digital profile. This is first first part of their genius design. And the second part of their genius design is that you can't complete the user journey without providing Google and data and information for improving the model. For example, so how it actually works. They re-rank top 20 pages such that the page with the topmost likelihood of being clicked is on the first place. The whole point is so that the users has the page that she clicks on at the position number 1, right? The position number 2 is the page with the second highest likelihood of click. The third position is the page with the third highest likelihood of click, and so on. And if you click on the page number 3, for example, and not number 1, that gives Google a data point that says, no, in this particular case, for this particular user and this particular search query, the page number 3 actually should be the page number 1. So there's no way you can get value out of Google search without providing them with this additional information, with this data point. That gives them chance to retrain this model, to improve this model continuously. And that's how you can do nothing against Google search. First of all, you don't have the historical data about all the search queries. You don't have the digital profile, because again, the digital profile is constructed not just from Google search, but also from the other products that Google releases, deploys, and sells. But secondly, you have this crucial data point which allows you to actually retrain the model. You know which page should be on the first place. This is why the companies who understand the competitive advantage, who knows how to build these cycles, the product, the data, the model, and the perceived value of the product, how they emerge the winners, how they grab the market, and how they position themselves such that having a head-to-head competition with them becomes virtually unthinkable.
Okay, I got the idea that you need to make this big process of using data and fill this data again and again to put it into a cycle, which is learning using the same data, and you need this casual content and casual situation from time to time to reuse this database to have the best results of implementing AIs. You just described it very interestingly how these giants work. But if you're talking about smaller companies like startups or like SMBs, and they are willing to employ AI technologies into their business to have this competitive advantage, what is the idea or what are the best practices for them to use it like in full range?
The approach is exactly the same. Obviously, enterprises is one world, but if you'd like another example, my favorite would be the company called Blue River. It's been established by two Stanford students in the year 2014 or so. And the problem that they were solving is the distribution of the herbicides across the fields. If you've ever seen a plane flying across the field and dropping the herbicide on the crop, you can think about how tremendously inefficient this process is, right? You just disperse a canister of the valuable chemical across the entire field. You obviously kill some weeds, but it's carpet bombing really. It's not very environmentally friendly. It's not very bio-friendly, and obviously it's not very economically. So the Blue River founders decided that they could do better, and they envisioned the device which you can tow across the field with the tractor. And the device is a set of cameras looking downwards, the computer that analyzes the images from those cameras and the herbicide dispensers, so that whenever the camera comes across the weed, it triggers and the image recognition algorithm recognizes the weed versus the crop. The dispenser triggers the herbicide dispensing. Obviously, they didn't have any data in the beginning, right? You don't have the data set of weeds versus crops when you start building such thing. So the founders, two of them, went out to the field, literally to the field, to the farmer's field, and took the images of the crops versus weeds. The crops were cabbages, with their own cell phones. And that's how they collected the first couple of hundreds, maybe low thousands of the images. They've trained the first model, the first crop versus weed recognition model using this data. And the model, to the very least, wasn't impressive. It wasn't the best model in the world. It wasn't very accurate. It was quite lousy. But it was enough to convince a couple of farmers to give it a try. And when the first farmers started towing their device across the fields, Blue River as a company started getting the images from the cameras. They used those images to improve their model. The second version of the model wasn't super impressive still. That was enough to convince even more farmers to give it a try, and so on. They understood the cycle and they worked laser focused on getting more data, improving the product, getting more users, getting more data. This story ended up with Blue River being acquired by John Deere for 3,000 something million in the year 2017, if I'm right about that, which was a huge acquisition back then. And the question is, what was the reason for this huge acquisition, right? John Deere is a huge company, and there are other companies in the market as well. We have all those big techs, Google, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Does Blue River has the best engineers or the largest number of engineers? Clearly not, right? Do they have the most powerful infrastructure on the market? Clearly not. So what was the reason for this large acquisition? They had the data. They had the huge and the best in the world data set of weeds versus crops. And this data was enough to build the superior product. Basically, it was cheaper and easier to acquire Blue River than to build a competitor starting at the point zero. Because again, if you start at the point zero, you can go still to the field and get your first images and build the first model. But Blue River is already there, right? They already have this advanced model because you started like 5 years behind them. And now the farmer who decides between the established Blue River technology with their models and your new startups with the initial, let's say the initial model, they clearly would choose Blue River, right? This is the company who understands the game, who understands what they want to achieve, and that understands clearly how they want to employ AI to get the competitive advantage. So it's not just limited to large companies such as Google. Anyone can build the AI business and AI competitive advantage if they understand the game.
It sounds like you need to follow two rules to get the most of AI on the market. First of all, you need to make data a value to companies and create the big capital of this data on the particular market. And second one, you need this continuous enhancement and continuous streamlining your processes and product to stay competitive, like those two guys from Blue River. Is this right?
Kind of. I would position it slightly under a slightly different angle. I would say that you need to build your user journey such that it generates the most data, the most useful data for training your AI. The second part of this triangle would be to pick the right AI models that could benefit from your data. And the third part of this triangle is to make sure that the models that you create and improve, they contribute to the perceived value of your product, so that the better models you have, the better your product feels in the eyes of the users, so that it's easier for you to expand the user base and acquire even more data.